Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, the new Dungeons & Dragons film, and what it means. So, it's March. We are literally in the same month as the release of Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, and it is incredibly exciting. I think the reason why I'm very excited is we've arrived at a point where the second Dungeons & Dragons blockbuster opportunity has arrived, okay? So let's kind of talk about that. So one, tabletop role-playing game, the tabletop role-playing game industry, Dungeons & Dragons, despite attempts to unseat it, remains the number one tabletop role-playing game in the world, bar none, right? And because of that, it has already had one opportunity at a DND, at a Dungeons & Dragons blockbuster franchise. It happened in 2000. I think Damon Wayans was in it, and there's a few other people. For the life of me, I really can't even remember anybody else in the film, and it was a failure. The film was a commercial and critical failure. It just didn't work. Right now, what's kind of surprising is that people talk about the Dungeons & Dragons 2000 film as being a trilogy, and there were two other films that were created kind of adjacent to it, but I don't think anybody who's actually an actual real dungeon master or a Dungeons & Dragons player really considers that a trilogy in any way. Dungeons & Dragons is a massive property, and massive intellectual property that has spanned, it's coming up on 5 decades of existence. And so the 2000 movie was a real chance at a D&D blockbuster franchise. It failed. Now we have a completely renewed, refreshed opportunity. This new movie is freestanding. It does not connect to any other Dungeons & Dragons film, and it's a real studio. Paramount is putting on the film. It has like literally the stars in it. Michelle Rodriguez, her movies, her box office is literally in the billions. If you look, and honestly, I think and Chris Pine, right? Like same thing. I think his gross for the films over that he's been in is well over $1 billion, and Michelle Rodriguez is multiple billions, right? Regé-Jean Page is one of the biggest stars on Netflix right now, and Justice Smith has had. If you like, truly, there are billions of dollars. Even Sophia Lillis, every single person attached to this thing is a full-on real star, right? Either on the big screen or the small screen. I think Regé-Jean Page is the only one who does really not have a significant hit on the big screen. Hugh Grant, like literally billion, like this is a for realsies shot at a brand new Dungeons & Dragons American blockbuster franchise, right? And we could be looking at a trilogy. What's at stake, right? It could fail. It could absolutely fail. I think the odds of it failing are like 5%, right? But I think there's a lot of market situations which means it could really do extremely well, right? I think there's an opportunity right now to further transition fantasy away from the British and to an American fantasy, to establish really American fantasy. I think we're getting close to that, right? Willow is part of that. Willow over on Disney Plus is part of that, and there's a real push. And I think even Stranger Things is really moving fantasy closer and closer to American fantasy, fully surpassing British fantasy, which I think has happened at this point. Just my 2 cents, all right? But this is a huge opportunity. So with this month, we have a new opportunity for a D&D American blockbuster franchise, and there is a possibility for a D&D CU, a D&D CU, a Dungeons & Dragons cinematic universe. That possibility genuinely exists. If this hits, if people love it, we could be, we could have, a trilogy in the Forgotten Realms, a trilogy in Dragonlance, a trilogy in Exandria, and then exactly like the Marvel Cinematic Universe successfully brought those groups together, we could have the combination of Dungeons & Dragons war bands coming together on Spelljammer ships, right? And coming from different realms and punching through into Dominaria, and and having adventures in Dominaria. Like all of that, that's what's at stake. We have this incredible opportunity, this beautiful opportunity, and we can have a successful film. And actually, if it's successful, it's going to get a second or a third movie, right? Like, and I think, it'll either fail or we'll have. There are three fates. Failure. I think there's a 5% chance this will fail, not because it wasn't handled well, but I think overall. But there is this very real problem. I've been listening to Patrick Willems recently. He's a brilliant film commentary guy, and he talked about one of the reasons why Ambulance failed, right? And he said one of the reasons why Ambulance failed was there's just so much content out right now. A lot of times you're just putting another pancake on the stack, right? And so if the D&D movie fails, it will be my opinion that there's just a sea of content and it wouldn't hit at the right time. I really think that Paramount, from everything I've seen so far, Paramount and Hasbro are doing the best they can to manage this film, and I have great hopes for it. 5% chance of failure, right? I think there's about a 55% chance of a successful Dungeons & Dragons American blockbuster franchise, and we get a full trilogy. And I think there's a 40% chance we are looking at the beginning of the D&D CU, the Dungeons & Dragons cinematic universe, which would span across Forgotten Realms, Krynn, and Exandria, right? And then we would have essentially like an Avengers film where all of those established Dungeons & Dragons war bands, those groups of player characters, would band together and punch through to Dominaria and announce to the world Dungeons & Dragons is connected to a millennium of worlds, like literally 1,000 worlds, through Lego and Funko Pop and Magic the Gathering, right? And I think also you could be looking at the first truly world stranding. Actually, I wanted to say the first world stranding film, but actually the Lego films have already done that. The Lego films have really announced that, Lego Batman and the Lego movie have already announced that everything connected within Legos, that it's a shared universe, right? And you're about to get minifigs that are going to pop into that shared universe very soon, right? Directly from Dungeons & Dragons, which is extremely exciting. And I think the reason we're going to see that is the Lego universe already includes the Lord of the Rings world, and both Legos and Magic the Gathering are snugging Lord of the Rings closer and closer to Dungeons & Dragons, where it belongs, right? And soon, so Magic the Gathering, which is already connected to Dungeons & Dragons through Dominaria and Ravnica and Theros, right? Magic the Gathering is having Lord of the Rings connected right in there, so that Drizzt Do'Urden can meet Gandalf. We're only a few months away from this, right? Which is fantastic, and all of that also is cohesively pulled together and creating this world stranding world with Legos as well. It's a beautiful synergy, right? And I think that's one of the things that's really exciting about this new film. Is just everything that is possible that can come out of this. So I am extremely excited about I'm amazingly excited about the possibility of a D&D American blockbuster franchise. I'm even more excited about the possibility of the emergence of the Dungeons & Dragons cinematic universe, right? And I know this is going to sound strange, but you and I are dungeon masters, right? We know that every time you take a shot, the die rolls, right? We could get a natural one, right? I'm even excited for what will happen with a failure, right? Because I was recently reading about Jake Paul, right? So Jake Paul just fought he's building a career as a professional boxer, right? And the reality is, a lot of people say he has no business in that space and he's making a mockery of professional boxing, right? But the reality is, professional boxing was a hair's breadth from dead, and Jake Paul has really injected a lot of life into something that was really almost a completely dead medium, right? But Jake Paul constructed this world where he recently had a split decision against a guy, and essentially he effectively lost the fight, but he won, right? And he won because he made minimum $8 million. Some people are thinking the count on what he took away, depending on, how much he got from the pay-per-view and what he was paid initially. He got between $8 and $30 million. And get this is going to sound strange, but I'm even excited for the possibility of the D&D movie failing. And the reason why is even the failure, right? Because the attempt is so bold and so unprecedented, even the failure could be massively successful for Dungeons & Dragons. Jake Paul has set up a situation for himself in boxing that where when he loses, he wins, right? And not just money, he continues to bring massive fame to himself. And the other thing is he's a YouTuber, right? And so by being a boxer, he keeps himself fit and he's able to be on screen. Like it's win-win all around, right? And here's the thing. Dungeons & Dragons is in direct competition with not with a single tabletop role-playing game in the world, but with the entire industry. And once again, D&D will be delivering a win that the tabletop role-playing game industry has never, ever accomplished, right? And D&D will be doing it for the second time, right? So, so there, I know there are people who are going to, laugh and clap if the D&D movie fails, but the reality, even a failed Dungeons & Dragons American real release film is an accomplishment that the entire rest, like, where is the Pathfinder American film? I don't think it's even reached development hell, right? Like, and Dungeons & Dragons, to get this film to, the movie you're going to see at the end of this month, it took 10 years to bring it here, right? Going through the Hollywood gauntlet is brutal, and Hasbro, my hat's off to you. They have done a tremendous job, and for the second time in history, they have accomplished something that the rest of the entire tabletop role-playing game industry combined has never even done once. Right? Incredible. So I'm very proud of Hasbro. I'm incredibly proud of Dungeons & Dragons. I could not be more excited to be in the literal month when we will get to see our second Dungeons & Dragons movie. And I also feel incredibly blessed as an American, and as just a person put in the right place and time. When the first film released, I was 30 years old. I will be 53 years old when I get to see the second Dungeons & Dragons attempt at a D&D blockbuster franchise, and I could not be more thrilled. I am super excited. I'd love to hear your journey toward the film. Are you excited to see it? What do you think are the odds of a failure? What do you think are the odds of a D&D blockbuster franchise? And what do you think are the odds of this truly being the next cinematic universe? All right? And the reality is, at this point, when I say cinematic universe, I'm really talking about Marvel Cinematic Universe, and there's 3 now, I think, and the Harry Potter Cinematic Universe, and the Fast and Furious Cinematic Universe, right? And I really am taking DC off the list. They have done such a horrendous job. And also, I think I'm really kind of bowing out on the DC Cinematic Universe because they did such a horrendous job. No one took the thing seriously. It was a bridge to nowhere. And James Gunn had the authority and the opportunity to wipe the slate clean. And he said, you know what? We're going to continue to deliver the worst possible garbage to you, and nothing will change, right? And my wife gets to keep her job on Peacemaker, right? And so that my wife can keep her job on Peacemaker, we're going to make sure that the DCU is never a viable universe, which is really sad, right? And there is just a trainload of garbage coming out from, that's going to pile up. So what's really nice is by DCEU bowing out, I think this makes even more room for the possibility of a actual Dungeons & Dragons cinematic universe. I'm very excited. I'm so excited for this. What do you think is the possibility of a D&D cinematic universe? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Every word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.